I'm Tom from DIY Life Tech, and I've been looking at the concept of combining solar power with cryptocurrency mining for a while and doing experiments around that. But I think I've figured out the version of that would be most cost effective and could actually potentially make cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin green overnight if it was applied at scale. And that combination is taking cryptocurrencies and combining them with rooftop solar, combining cryptocurrency mining with rooftop solar. So in a lot of places in the United States, people use a process called net metering. And basically the way that works is during the day, your solar panels on your roof are churning out a bunch of power. But overnight, they wouldn't be generating any power, or if there's clouds or rain or anything, they would be generating a lot less power than normal. So you could have batteries and store all the power that your panels generate during the day and then use it at night. That's one option, but that's expensive because then you need to install a giant set of batteries to run all night. The other alternative, again, is net metering. And basically the way it works there is that the panels during the day generate power and your meter actually spins backwards. So, I mean, this isn't a physical meter, but basically it would be going backwards. You'd be getting negative power usage. And during the day, it's going to spin backwards for, quite a lot because you're probably not going to be using nearly as much power as your panels are generating. So you get basically a negative number for how much power you've used. Then during the night, or at times when your panels aren't generating, the meter spins forwards again and probably uses up that credit sort of that you've built up from running during the day. And it works really well because then you're basically using the grid like a giant battery. You're kind of banking power when you're generating excess during the day and then using it, using that credit, and you only pay for the net amount, which is why it's called net metering. So if I generate, 1,000 kilowatt hours and I use 1,100 kilowatt hours, then I'm only going to pay for the net amount, which is 100 kilowatt hours. So it works really well for solar customers to meet their own needs in their particular house or business. And, if you're going to generate as much power as you use, then you're in great shape. The problem, though, is that at a certain point, you're probably, if you put a lot of panels on your roof, you're going to generate more power than you use in your home or business. And the problem then is that when you sell your power back to the grid, you can sell that excess power back to your utility. They give you a terrible rate for it. And here in California, PGE only gives you about 4 cents at the most per kilowatt hour for that excess power. So if you're spinning your meter backwards, spinning it forwards, using the power that you're generating right on site, you're in great shape. The second you generate more power than you need and sell it back to the grid, you're actually selling it at a loss, basically 4 cents per kilowatt hour. So as a result of that, most people who are sizing a residential or business solar system size it to match the demand of that home or business. And that makes sense. You don't want to generate excess power. You want to meet all your needs, but you don't want to generate more, because if you generate more, then you're basically just losing money because you're getting such a terrible rate on it. Now, again, that makes sense economically, but it's kind of terrible from an environmental standpoint, and just an efficiency standpoint, too. And the reason for that is, the amount of power that you can generate from a typical roof is generally a lot higher than the amount of power that a home's going to use. So on average, a home in the United States needs about a 6.5 kilowatt system. And that's going to generate about 9,000 kilowatt hours of power per year, which is about the average in the United States, depending on the size of your house. But if you have a larger roof, then you can put a 6.5 kilowatt hour thereabouts system, or kilowatt rather, system on your roof, and it's not going to take up nearly the amount of space that you have available. And I'll give the example of my own home here. I have about 1,800 square feet of roof space that would be eligible for solar. It's in enough sunshine during the day. The Bay Area gets about 1,700 sun hours per year. So 1,800 square feet. This is all according to Project Sunroof, which is a really cool tool from Google. You can it uses 3D modeling. You can get the approximate solar eligible roof space for your own home or any home. Again, for mine, it's about 1,800 square feet. But the system that I would need to generate my own usage, assuming I use about the average amount, so a 6.5 kilowatt system, would only use probably about 500 square feet of that roof space. So I've got this huge amount of excess space, even if I put in a system that generated all of my own needs. And again, with the way that net metering is set up now, I probably would just put in the 6.5 kilowatt system, and all that extra space would just be going to waste and not generating any green power. But what I propose is, what if I, instead of doing that, maxed out the amount of space that my roof could accommodate, or got very close to that, and use the excess, instead of selling the excess power back to the grid, used it to mine cryptocurrencies. So I've been experimenting with this in terms of building my own off-grid solar cryptocurrency miner. But for this application, you'd probably want to buy something like the Antminer S19. And that's a dedicated cryptocurrency mining machine that draws about 3,200 watts when it's operating. And that means that if you ran it 24/7 for the entire year, you would generate, or you would use rather, about 28,000 kilowatts of power. So that's quite a lot. And here in the Bay Area, again, we get 1,700 sun hours. So to generate 28,000 kilowatt hours for the year, that means I need probably about a 16, 17 kilowatt system. That would, alongside the system that I would need to meet my own needs for my own house, that would use up probably about 90% of my available roof space. So I could actually install a system that meets my own needs, plus an extra 28,000 kilowatts, kilowatt hours for the year, because it's a 16 kilowatt system, something that would generate enough power to run that Antminer 24/7 for the entire year, and still not even use up all of the extra solar space on my roof. But if I did that, how would the economics of it shake out for me? So this is where things start to get really interesting. If you use the NiceHash marketplace and look at the amount that an S19 Antminer will generate in mining profits, or in that case, selling the hashing power that it uses or creates, it's about $37 per day of gross revenue, or about $13,500 per year that you would get from that Antminer S19. Now, according to the Project Sunroof page, the 16.5 or thereabouts kilowatt system that I would need to generate enough power here in California to run that Antminer 24/7, again, about 28,000 kilowatt hours a year, that would cost me about $38,000. So $38,000 for the system. The Antminer itself retails for about $3,300. Right now they're a bit inflated on price, but let's assume it goes for retail. So if you look at the total cost, you're basically looking at $41,300 for that proposed system. And again, it'd be generating from that Antminer about $13,500 per year of mining revenue at today's crypto prices. And that's in addition to meeting my power needs. If I added extra panels, I'd still have room for plenty of panels to meet my own energy needs. But again, this is above and beyond that, using my excess space, generating excess power. And $13,500 a year coming in. The total system cost, right around $41,000. That means that I would break even on the system in about 3 years. And after that, all of the profit, all of the revenue coming in from mining using that excess power generated by my extra panels would be pure profit. So let that sink in for a second. 3-year repayment time on the system, including the miner itself and all of those panels at today's crypto prices. And then from there on out, everything would be profit. And the average solar panel now lasts about 25 years. So they would have paid for themselves in 3, and you'd have quite a lot of time, at least 25 years, maybe even 30, of power generation. And obviously you'd probably have to buy a new piece of dedicated mining hardware every couple of years, perhaps. The Antminer S19 will work for a while, but it will probably not be the top of the line hardware. Bitcoin and other coins will get harder to mine, so you may need to upgrade your hardware. But again, it's only a $3,300 piece. It's a small piece of the overall revenue for the year. So you could even upgrade that every few years and still be quite profitable and have many, many years of pure profit coming out of a system like this. So I think that's really exciting because it's so much better of a way to use excess space on your roof. And it creates an incentive for individual homeowners to, instead of just installing enough solar to meet their needs, actually install extra panels and mine and generate profit for themselves over the time, pay for their systems basically through mining, and then generate profit in the future. So of course there's some risks. Nothing like this would be risk-free, especially anything having to do with crypto. So one is that a utility has to approve a grid-connected solar panel system. And if I'm using 9,000 kilowatts per year, and then I'm suddenly proposing to use an extra 28,000 from my solar system, they're probably going to scratch their heads and say, well, why do you need that excess power? You're not going to actually use it. You're going to be feeding it into our grid. We don't really want it. They might not approve the system. So probably you would have to start mining, buy the Antminer first, mine for a bit, demonstrate that you're really going to use the power, and then apply to install the solar panel system. They might approve it off the bat, I'm not sure, but that is definitely a risk that the utility would say, nah, we don't want to do that. Another risk, obviously, is changes in crypto prices. So, crypto could tank, Bitcoin could drop, and the repayment time would increase pretty dramatically at that point. So crypto is volatile, and therefore anything that's an investment or strategy based on crypto is also volatile. Then again, it could also go up in price, in which case your repayment time frame could get cut to a year or less if the price went up back to the highs that we saw, at the top of crypto's kind of bubble. When Bitcoin was up around 60,000, if it got there, then your repayment time in your system would be a lot shorter. So obviously volatility, just having to do with the fact that this is crypto. One good thing though there is that, because you're not just buying a bunch of mining hardware, you're buying solar panels, you could always hedge that risk by using that excess power for something else. So maybe I install these panels intending to mine, and the price of Bitcoin tanks in a year, and it's not worth doing. I could buy an electric car, rent it on Toro. I could, change out all of my gas appliances for electric ones, make use of that excess power in other ways that would still be profitable. So I think there's definitely good hedges because, again, solar panels, are valuable and are generating valuable power, whether you're using that power for mining or not. Other advantages to the strategy, the fact that there's a lot of good tax breaks currently available, up to 26% of the cost of a system when you install a new solar panel system. Obviously check with, this is in the United States, check with a tax advisor. This is not tax advice or legal advice, so you'd have to check with your own advisor, but it's certainly possible that you could take advantage of those federal or even local tax incentives that reduces the overall cost of the system. Now, something even cooler here that I shared, I wrote this up on 1.0 on Medium, is that, at a certain point, it makes sense for investors to actually purchase properties just to put panels on the roof, purchase a single family home just to do that. So I gave the example, Imperial County, California has the most sun of any place in America. I looked at a sample property there. It's on the market for about $300,000 right now. And it has enough capacity for about 26.8 kilowatts of panels. But because the town it's in, El Centro, gets about 2,131 yearly sun hours, so substantially more than my 1,700 here in the Bay Area, that system would actually generate almost 60,000 kilowatt hours per year. And that's actually enough to run 2 Antminers and would generate about 27,000 per year in revenue. So actually that would be enough to pay off the cost of the miners and the cost of the panels you would need to run them in about 2.5 years. And then it would be still enough to pay off the mortgage or pay the mortgage payments on that property if you purchased it, about $1,300 per month of a projected mortgage payment, and still generate about $950 a month in profit with today's crypto prices. So, an investor could purchase that home, put a bunch of panels on the roof, put a couple Antminers in the basement or the garage, and basically pay for the house through the crypto mining. And that opens up really cool possibilities. They could rent the house out at a nominal rate to a low-income family, basically provide a subsidized housing unit that the government wouldn't have to have anything to do with. They could even provide it to somebody, for no rent at all, and just basically subsidize that using the crypto on the roof. And that got me thinking, I started my company in Baltimore, Maryland. They actually have a problem with a lot of vacant homes, and they had at different points given those away for $1 to people who would, invest in them and fix them up. So if you bought those for $1 and put panels on the roof, even though they tend to be smaller homes, you could generate enough power and use that for mining crypto and actually provide, again, a subsidized housing unit where you could have a low-income family live in there, and the cost of maintaining the house would basically be subsidized by the panels on the roof and the ant miners doing the mining, and you wouldn't even necessarily have to charge people rent, which is obviously a much better alternative to having vacant homes on the market. So I think when you've got even when you've got the higher cost of a property in a place like El Centro, it's offset by the fact that there's a ton of sun. But even in a place like Baltimore, where there isn't so much sun or so much roof space, you could actually, if you got the properties as a vacant property, you could actually put panels on the roof and make it into a profitable, hopefully occupied home using this strategy of combining rooftop solar with crypto mining. But here's the best part of it. If you scale this up and you actually did it at the scale of individual cities, states, countries, but even a state the size of California, for example, according to Project Sunroof, there's about 121 million megawatt hours of power. But actually, if you use only half of the roofs in California, so if you just put solar on half of the unused roofs in California, you generate 121 million megawatt hours of power per year. And that's enough to run the entire Bitcoin network, which uses about 110 million megawatt hours of power per year. So again, if you just took the unused roof capacity in California, just took half of that, put it towards solar, and then use that to mine, you could actually pay for the entire Bitcoin network, or cover the power for the entire Bitcoin network using just that strategy. And it would probably be hard to get half the state, obviously, to put panels on their roofs, but you can see that you don't need a huge scale of this. If you did it across the United States, you wouldn't need very high adoption of a strategy like this in order to make the entire Bitcoin network green and powered by renewable energy. So I think that's really exciting. It presents some possibilities where instead of crypto being this sort of horrible environmental issue, it could actually be an incentive to install excess green power, like excess solar panels on people's roofs, using that unused capacity that would otherwise go to waste, and actually generate crypto from that, create a ton of value in the market and for the individual property owners, of course, and work to green the cryptocurrencies over time as well. So I really think this strategy could kind of touch off a major green energy revolution if it was actually implemented to its sort of fullest extent. And I'm really excited about that possibility. I think for that to happen at a larger scale, there's a couple of things that societies would have to do. One would be to kind of create additional clarity on the tax and regulatory implications around crypto so that more people feel comfortable holding it, and hopefully so that volatility is a little bit lower in that market, because again, this is still a risky bet because it is centered on a risky asset, cryptocurrencies. I think also extending some of the solar tax credits would help a lot. They've been sort of phased out, or they plan to be phased out over the next few years. So extending those would obviously incentivize people to do this, and also reducing tariffs on the import of cryptocurrency mining computers and also solar panels. So there's fairly hefty tariffs. That means it's harder to import things like ant miners, and that adds to the cost. So if societies were serious about using this as a way to create sort of carbon neutral market for crypto, I think they want to relax those tariffs, and that would help to get cheaper hardware and to reduce the bottlenecks in getting hardware that currently makes it so much more expensive than its retail price. But here's the cool thing. You don't actually have to wait for that to happen. If you have solar panels on your roof and you have excess capacity, or maybe you're thinking about installing a system and you're trying to size it, you could add right now a little bit of extra capacity to your system, use some of that extra roof space that you may have, generate a bit of excess power, and then build a simple mining computer. And I showed there's one you can build for under $1,000. It uses about 1,300 kilowatt hours per year of electric power. Put in a couple extra panels on the roof when you do your installation, and you could pretty readily pay for the cost of the electricity for that computer. And you're not going to get rich doing that, but you're certainly going to make more than you would make selling the power back to the grid. You'd be generating totally green cryptocurrency, which is kind of an exciting thing to be doing. And it's a great way, I think, to get a bit more experience and just sort of experiment with this. So this is not investment advice for you. This is a general concept Always consult your own advisors and know that this is risky and any kind of an investment can lose value. But it's certainly something to think about if you want to get some experience or experiment with these technologies. Again, if you have some excess capacity for solar that you're just selling back to the grid, or you're sizing a system and thinking, well, maybe I'll add, a couple extra kilowatts to it, generate a bit of extra power per year, and do something interesting and valuable with it. I know I'm planning to put solar on my roof, probably when I need a new roof in the next few years, and I definitely would consider adding extra panels and then using it for mining and really experimenting with this idea at a small scale. But again, I think this is not something that has to stay small. If it was expanded out to the scale of entire states or even just towns, it could be a huge asset for homeowners or business owners, because it would be a new source of passive revenue from the mining. It would be a reason to make full use of the potential solar panel space on a roof. And it would also be a way to incentivize the switch to carbon neutral green energies, and also to sort of create a subsidy around that, even potentially to create subsidized or relatively low-cost housing for people who could live in homes that were being partially paid for by this combo of rooftop solar and crypto. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to do a lot of good here, and I'm excited about this idea, and I look forward to continuing to experiment with it. Let me know what you think. Share your thoughts. Are you doing this? Would you want to do it? If there's some major issue I've missed, do you have any questions? Leave them in the comments. If you found this helpful, if you want to follow along, please do subscribe to my channel here. You can also find our blog at diylifetech.com. I'll put a link down in the description, or join our Substack to see more updates on these experiments. That's diylifetech.substack.com. Thanks for watching.